Okay, so today we're going to be doing question 102, binary tree level order. So what this question is basically asking us is, given the root of a binary tree, we want to return the level order traversal of its node values. So from left to right, level by level. So this little highlight section is basically just kind of giving you what the output should be like. So starting at your root, which is 3, right, you want to go down and return each instance. So 3 is the first instance because it's your root, and we want to return it in a list. So 3 here. Then you go down level by level. So then you have 9 and 20. We want to have 9 and 20 within the same list, right? So you see, then that's that level. And then 15 and 7, and then you end and return it. So how are we going to do that, right? So this problem's a little bit tricky, right? The first instance of what we need to do is kind of think of what data structure will allow us to basically start off at the root and to return whatever we get, add it into a list, and continue going. So in really simple broad terms, we need to get the value, add to a list, and spit it back out. So first in, first out. So if it's first in and first out, right, then we should probably be using a queue. So if we're using a queue, right, which the definition of a queue is first in, first out, we know that we're going to have to at least create one. So let's at least just create a queue, right? Queue, right? So now we have our queue. And what are we going to do with this queue? Well, because now as we have a queue, we need to at least add a value within it, right? Because we can't just traverse through the binary tree and add each level at a time, because what the question is asking us is do level by level, so 9 and 20, right? So what we're going to do is, starting at the root, we are going to just do queue.append root. We are given root, right, as our argument. So over here we have add first value into our queue, right? Beautiful. So now as our queue has a value, we're able to do a couple things here. This is going to be a continuous operation until a certain condition is met, right? As we need to start from the root and continue going down. If we already just added the root into the queue, what we could do is make a while loop, right? So while queue, right? And what this means is basically while our queue is not empty, right? Continue running whatever lines of code are within this while loop. And what are we going to do within here? Well, we need to, now as we have a queue, what we're going to want to do is basically when we're at the root, we want to remove that node from the queue, right? And then continuously add the next levels. So once we're at the root 3, we want to remove that, go to the next level, and then add 9 and 20. So node left and node right. And then remove the 9 and 20 and continue the cycle of going down level by level. So in order to do that, the first thing we're going to need to do is create a for loop so we can reach within the range and continue the cycle. So let's create a variable called queueLength, and what we're going to do is just set it equal to length.queue, right? Because we want to basically have the length consistently so we can continue running this. And we're going to create a loop for I in range of queueLength, the variable we just created, right? We are going to do, well, first, before we do that, actually, okay. So we have the for loop, we have the consistency and the cycle that I just mentioned we're going to do. And remember how we need to remove node 1 from the front, right? So the queue is empty. And then after that, add values to the queue. So you know the node left and node right. Okay, taking a look at this output right here, you are given a list within a list. So we need to actually start making variables to hold that. So how that's going to look is this result variable is going to be equal to an empty list, right? So this is an empty list, and we are going to add our or what's the word that they use here? They say we're going to add our levels into, and then return as our answer, right? So this is what result is made for, right? Now as we know that, what we're going to need to do is then create a variable called level, right? And you can name this anything. And this is going to basically be your 3, your 9 and 20, and your 15 and 7. And each time you get that little segment, we're going to append it to result. This is really important because we need to have this for the next section. So for I in range of Q length, the first thing we're going to do is, like I mentioned, we're going to want to remove whatever segment we're on. So that's going to be, let's make a variable called node equals Q dot pop left, right? So this is removing node from Q, right? And because of that, now as we have that as a variable, we can do a if statement or a condition like if node. So if that node is not empty, right, meaning we're not at the last segment, what we could do is we're going to do a couple things. First, we're going to need to add the values into level, right? So level.append node.value. Then we're going to add values into the queue. Beautiful. And node.write. Awesome. Okay, so if node saying if node variable has values, right? Removing node from queue. Like I mentioned, this is adding values into the level. This is adding values within the queue, okay? And then we can do just a simple if statement to add the values from level within our result array. So if level, right, if there are values in levels, then we're going to just want to do result.append level, right? And then if that's the case, then we just want to return result because, like I mentioned, that is going to be the last thing we're returning. Empty list, add our values into them, and return as our answer. Beautiful. So let's just give this a run. I think everything should be all right. Oh, we don't get a single output. Why is that? Okay, let's take a look. Results here. Okay. You make a DQ. You append root. While Q. Okay. This is the length. This is the level. For I in the range, node equals pop left. I know it's probably somewhere down here. I'm double checking everything. You do add values into level. Oh. This should be outside the for loop within the while loop. Hold up. There you go. Okay. Let's go to submit and make sure we test our test cases. There you go. Okay, beautiful. I was right. Okay. So, a little setback. The issue was that the if statement, if level, was outside the while loop, right? All this code is in that while loop instead of the return. So, notice how we are consistently adding values within Q. So, because of that, it's a cycle, right? We're reaching all the way to the bottom, and then we add values. If it's outside the while loop, then there's nothing to append, and because of that, we had nothing. Our output was blank, right? Our output was literally result, and it was just an empty list. Result gains values once we append level. So this is a really important line. But key points to take away from this is this was mainly just a data structure question, particularly with queues. We created a queue, we added the root, so that's our starting point, right? And with that, we create a while loop, right? So while our queue is not empty, right? Consistently be doing all this code down here. We grab the length of the queue, and we create a for loop using that length, and we are consistently removing that value from Q and then adding that value into level, so you are consistently getting values. So for the first instance of example 1, that level.append node value, or that node.pop left, is going to be 3, right? Then you add values into the queue, so it'd be left and right, 9 and 20. And then you consistently like do the next line level by level. And because of that, we add those values into result, right, which is that empty array, which you return, giving you the output of 3, 920, and 15, 7.